Imagine walking through the heart of ancient Rome on a hot summer afternoon. The streets are crowded with merchants, slaves, soldiers, and politicians. The air is thick with smoke from cooking fires and the smell of animals packed into narrow roads. Around you stands one of the greatest civilizations in human history, a society famous for engineering marvels, magnificent temples, and aqueducts that carried fresh water across vast distances. Now imagine desperately needing to use the bathroom. Most people picture Roman toilets as surprisingly advanced for their time. After all, these were the people who built roads that survived for thousands of years. But the horrifying truth is that a visit to a Roman public toilet could expose you to filth, disease, parasites, humiliation, and dangers that modern people rarely even think about. And what happened inside those stone rooms might completely change the way you see ancient Rome. As you make your way through the busy city, signs of wealth and power surround you. Marble columns rise above crowded streets. Statues of emperors watch over public squares. Wealthy citizens move through the city wrapped in bright white togas. Yet beneath this impressive image lies a daily reality that affected nearly everyone. Most Romans did not have private bathrooms in their homes. While wealthy families sometimes enjoyed indoor plumbing and personal facilities, the vast majority of ordinary citizens relied on public latrines. These public toilets were scattered throughout the city and used by hundreds, sometimes thousands, of people every day. No privacy. No doors. No individual stalls. Just long rows of stone seats where strangers sat shoulder to shoulder while taking care of their most personal business. Picture yourself approaching one of these public latrines for the first time. From the outside, the building might appear surprisingly elegant. Some were decorated with mosaics. Others featured marble walls and carved stonework. Wealthy cities often took pride in maintaining attractive public facilities. But appearances could be deceiving. As you step inside, your senses are immediately overwhelmed. The first thing you notice is the smell. Despite the constant flow of water beneath the seats, human waste never completely disappeared. The odor mixed with damp stone, stagnant moisture, sweat, and the countless traces left behind by hundreds of daily visitors. The air hangs heavy around you. Every breath reminds you exactly where you are. And there is no escaping it. Then you see the seating arrangement. A long stone bench stretches across the room. Circular holes are carved directly into the surface at regular intervals. There are no partitions separating users, no curtains, no attempt at privacy whatsoever. People sit only inches apart. A merchant discusses business with a customer. A soldier shares gossip with a friend. An elderly citizen argues politics, all while using the toilet. For Romans, this was perfectly normal. Public latrines were not merely functional spaces. They were social environments where conversations happened naturally. To modern viewers, the idea may seem shocking. Yet for many Romans, a toilet visit resembled a casual gathering more than a private moment. The sounds inside could be just as unsettling as the sights. Water trickled continuously beneath the stone seats. Voices echoed against hard walls. Laughter erupted from one corner. Arguments flared in another. Wooden sandals scraped across wet floors. Every noise blended together into a strange soundtrack of daily Roman life. There was no expectation of silence. No embarrassment. No personal space. If a senator happened to sit next to a laborer, both would continue their conversations without concern. The public toilet reflected a unique aspect of Roman society, one where communal experiences often replaced individual privacy. But beneath this seemingly ordinary routine lurked dangers few people fully understood. Running beneath the toilet seats was a channel of flowing water designed to carry waste away. At first glance, this system appears remarkably sophisticated. Many modern documentaries praise Roman sanitation as evidence of advanced engineering. And in some ways, that praise is deserved. The Romans built extensive sewer networks and water systems unlike anything seen before in much of the ancient world. However, there was a major problem. Removing waste did not necessarily eliminate disease. The water channels often carried dangerous bacteria and parasites throughout the city. What looked clean compared to older methods could still be incredibly hazardous by modern health standards. The Romans solved one problem while unknowingly creating several others. One of the most disturbing features of the public latrines sat directly at users' feet. A shallow water channel ran along the front of the seats. This water was not for drinking. It was used for cleaning. Instead of toilet paper, Romans relied on a communal tool known as a sponge attached to a stick. After use, the sponge was rinsed in the water channel and left for the next person. The same sponge might pass through dozens of hands in a single day. Nobody understood bacteria. Nobody understood viruses. Nobody understood microscopic contamination. To Romans, rinsing the sponge seemed perfectly reasonable. To modern viewers, it sounds like a nightmare. The more crowded the city became, the worse conditions often grew. Rome itself may have housed more than 1 million people at its peak. Every day, enormous numbers of citizens visited public facilities. The constant flow of users placed tremendous pressure on sanitation systems. Floors remained damp. Waste accumulated in hidden corners. Insects gathered wherever moisture and organic material existed. Workers attempted to keep facilities functioning, but complete cleanliness was nearly impossible. Imagine entering a room visited by hundreds of strangers before you, each leaving behind traces of their presence. That was everyday life for many Romans. And the consequences could spread far beyond the toilet walls. Modern researchers studying ancient remains have uncovered evidence suggesting that intestinal parasites were widespread throughout the Roman world. Worm infections appear to have affected many people despite the empire's famous sanitation infrastructure. This discovery surprised some historians. After all, improved plumbing should have reduced disease. Instead, certain practices may have allowed parasites to continue spreading efficiently. Shared cleaning tools, crowded facilities, contaminated water, large urban populations living close together. These conditions created ideal opportunities for invisible organisms to move from person to person. The Romans built extraordinary cities, but they could not see the microscopic enemies surrounding them every day. As evening approaches, the public latrine remains busy. Citizens continue arriving from every corner of the city. For them, this place is simply part of daily life. Nothing unusual. Nothing shocking. Just another stop during an ordinary day in ancient Rome. Yet beneath the conversations and routines lies a darker reality. The toilet was more than an uncomfortable necessity. It was a place where disease could spread silently. A place where countless strangers shared the same tools. A place where engineering brilliance collided with biological dangers nobody yet understood. And what happened beneath the stone seats hidden in the darkness below may have been even more terrifying than the conditions above. That secret waits beneath the floor where the next chapter will take us. If the smell, the crowds, and the shared sponge were not horrifying enough, the true nightmare often existed beneath the stone seats themselves. Most Romans never saw what lurked below. They heard it. A scratching sound. A splash in the darkness. The sudden movement of something unseen beneath the flowing water. Public latrines were connected to drainage channels and sewer systems that stretched beneath the city like a hidden underground world. These damp passages carried waste away from crowded neighborhoods, but they also attracted countless living creatures. Every visit to the toilet placed a Roman directly above an ecosystem of scavengers feeding on the city's refuse. And some of those creatures were much larger than anyone wanted to imagine. Among the most common visitors were rats. Modern cities struggle with rat infestations, but ancient Rome offered conditions that were nearly perfect for them. Food scraps littered the streets. Markets generated enormous amounts of waste. Sewer tunnels provided shelter from weather and predators. The population of rats likely exploded alongside the growth of the empire itself. At night, they emerged from drains and dark corners, searching for anything edible. Many found their way into public latrines. A Roman entering a toilet after sunset might hear squeaking beneath the floor or see shadows darting across wet stone. The rats were not afraid of people. In many cases, they lived alongside them. Some ancient accounts describe visitors feeling movement beneath their seats. Imagine sitting on cold stone while hearing splashes echo from below. You cannot see the source. You only know something is there. The sewer channels beneath many latrines were large enough to support surprisingly active populations of animals. Rats climbed along ledges. Insects swarmed over damp surfaces. Stray creatures occasionally wandered in from connected tunnels. The darkness transformed ordinary sounds into something much more frightening. Every scrape seemed larger than it really was. Every splash felt closer than expected. For many Romans, imagination filled the gaps where visibility ended. And imagination often created monsters. The insects were impossible to avoid. Flies gathered wherever waste accumulated. Mosquitoes thrived around standing water. Beetles crawled through cracks in stone and wood. Warm weather could turn entire sections of the city into breeding grounds for swarms. Inside crowded latrines, insects moved freely between waste, water channels, and human visitors. Nobody understood germ theory. Nobody realized that these tiny creatures could transport contamination from one surface to another. A Roman might brush away a fly without giving it a second thought. Yet that same insect may have landed on countless contaminated surfaces only moments earlier. The danger was invisible. The insects were everywhere. Then there was the water itself. Romans often trusted flowing water to keep things clean. It seemed logical. Water carried waste away. Water washed surfaces. Water reduced visible filth. But appearances could be misleading. The channels beneath public toilets did not contain pristine water from mountain springs. Instead, they often carried mixtures of runoff, waste, and contaminants moving through the city. The flow diluted many unpleasant sights, but it did not eliminate harmful organisms. To someone looking down into the channel, the moving water might appear reassuring. In reality, it could still carry countless unseen threats. The Romans had mastered engineering. Nature remained a step ahead. Even more unsettling was the possibility of dangerous gases accumulating underground. As waste decomposed within sewers and drainage systems, gases formed naturally. Most escaped harmlessly through openings and ventilation points. Occasionally, however, concentrations could build up in confined spaces. Ancient people did not understand the chemistry involved. When strange odors emerged from below, many interpreted them through superstition. Some believed foul smells carried sickness. Others viewed underground spaces as gateways to darker forces. Without scientific explanations, mysterious events often took on supernatural meanings. A sudden burst of noxious air from beneath a toilet could feel less like a natural occurrence and more like a warning from the underworld itself. Roman mythology already filled the world with unseen powers. Gods controlled storms. Spirits inhabited sacred places. Omens appeared in everyday life. It is not difficult to understand why sewers inspired fear. The underground tunnels were dark, wet, and largely unexplored by ordinary citizens. Most people only experienced them indirectly. They heard sounds emerging from drains. They smelled odors drifting upward. They imagined what might exist beneath their feet. Stories spread easily. One person claimed to see something moving in the darkness. Another swore they heard strange cries underground. Over time, ordinary sewer noises could become evidence of something far more terrifying. Fear often grows strongest where visibility ends. Workers responsible for maintaining parts of the sewer system faced dangers few others encountered. These laborers entered spaces that most citizens avoided entirely. They navigated slippery passages. They handled blockages. They dealt directly with accumulated waste. The work was exhausting, filthy, and potentially deadly. Poor lighting increased the risk of injury. Flooding could occur unexpectedly. Toxic air sometimes gathered in enclosed areas. Many maintenance workers belonged to the lowest levels of society, performing jobs that wealthier Romans preferred not to think about. Yet without their labor, the sanitation systems of Rome could collapse. The empire depended upon people willing to venture into its darkest spaces. The most famous sewer in Rome was the Cloaca Maxima, one of the greatest engineering achievements of the ancient world. Originally built centuries earlier, it helped drain marshland and transport waste away from the city. Even today, portions of it survive. To Roman citizens, structures like this symbolized civilization itself. They represented order imposed upon chaos. But there was another side to the story. Every tunnel carrying waste also carried danger. Every underground channel created new opportunities for contamination and infestation. The system was brilliant by ancient standards. Yet brilliance did not guarantee safety. The same infrastructure that made Rome powerful also exposed its people to risks they barely understood. As darkness settles over the city, the public latrine grows quieter. The conversations fade. The merchants leave. The soldiers return to their barracks. But beneath the stone floor, life continues. Rats move through tunnels. Insects search for food. Water carries waste through the underground maze. Strange sounds echo through unseen passages. Above ground, Rome appears magnificent. Below ground, another world exists entirely. A hidden world of scavengers, contamination, fear, and decay. And while these dangers were disturbing, they were not the greatest threat waiting inside a Roman public toilet. The most horrifying truth was not what Romans could see. It was what was happening inside their own bodies, spreading silently from person to person every single day. For most Romans, a visit to the public toilet lasted only a few minutes. They entered, sat down, exchanged a few words with friends or strangers, and continued with their day. Nothing about the experience seemed especially dangerous. There were no warning signs, no visible alarms, no obvious indication that their health might already be at risk. Yet every crowded latrine functioned as a meeting point for something far more dangerous than gossip or conversation. Invisible organisms moved from person to person without anyone noticing. Unlike rats or insects, these threats could not be seen in the dim light of a Roman toilet. They traveled silently through water, surfaces, food, and shared cleaning tools. And once they entered the human body, the consequences could last for years. One of the most widespread problems throughout the Roman world was intestinal parasites. Modern archaeologists examining ancient remains have discovered evidence that many Romans carried worms and other parasites inside their digestive systems. These infections affected rich and poor alike. A senator could suffer from the same parasites as a laborer. A merchant could carry the same infection as a slave. The parasites stole nutrients from their hosts. They weakened the body. They caused discomfort, fatigue, and chronic health problems. Most Romans never fully understood the source of their suffering. To them, illness often appeared mysterious. The true culprit was hidden deep inside their own bodies. Imagine a young Roman citizen visiting a public latrine on a busy morning. Hundreds of people have already used the facility. The communal sponges pass through countless hands. Water flows through channels that seem clean enough at first glance. Everything appears normal. The young man finishes his visit and heads to the marketplace. Days pass. Weeks pass. Eventually, symptoms begin to appear. Persistent stomach pain. Weakness. Digestive troubles. Perhaps weight loss. He blames bad food, bad luck, or an angry god. What he cannot know is that microscopic eggs may already be developing inside him. A simple toilet visit may have changed his health forever. The shared sponge remains one of the most shocking details of Roman sanitation. To modern audiences, it sounds almost unbelievable. Yet it was a practical solution by ancient standards. Paper was not commonly used for personal hygiene. Disposable products did not exist. The sponge attached to a stick offered a reusable alternative. The problem was obvious from a modern perspective. One person's contamination became another person's problem. Rinsing the sponge in flowing water reduced visible dirt, but it did not eliminate every harmful organism. Each reuse created another opportunity for transmission. Romans believed they were cleaning themselves. In many cases, they may have been spreading disease instead. Food markets added another layer of risk. Ancient Rome depended on enormous quantities of imported grain, vegetables, fruit, fish, and meat. Markets bustled with activity from sunrise until sunset. Many vendors worked only a short distance from public toilets. Crowded conditions made contamination difficult to avoid completely. Flies moved freely between waste and food. Dirty hands touched merchandise. Water quality varied from place to place. A person infected through poor sanitation could unknowingly contribute to a wider chain of transmission. The city functioned like an interconnected network. When disease entered one part of the system, it rarely stayed there for long. Children often faced the greatest danger. Their immune systems were still developing. They played in streets and courtyards where sanitation was imperfect. Many lacked the knowledge or habits that might reduce exposure. A Roman child growing up in a crowded urban neighborhood encountered health risks daily. Parasites, contaminated food, and unsanitary conditions formed part of ordinary life. Many survived despite these challenges. Others did not. Child mortality remained tragically high throughout the ancient world. Numerous factors contributed to this reality, but poor sanitation undoubtedly played an important role. The dangers of Roman toilets extended far beyond the toilet itself. Doctors existed throughout the Roman Empire, but their understanding of disease was limited. Many medical practitioners were highly skilled for their era. They treated wounds. They performed surgeries. They prescribed remedies. However, they lacked knowledge of bacteria, viruses, and microscopic parasites. Without that knowledge, prevention became extremely difficult. A physician might recognize symptoms without understanding their true cause. Patients received treatments based on theories that often misunderstood how disease spread. Some remedies helped. Others did very little. The invisible world remained hidden from everyone. Even the brightest Roman minds could not fight enemies they could not see. The irony is that Romans considered themselves relatively clean. Compared to many neighboring societies, they invested heavily in water infrastructure. Aqueducts delivered fresh water across remarkable distances. Public baths encouraged regular washing. Fountains supplied water throughout cities. To Roman eyes, these achievements demonstrated civilization and progress. And they were right to a degree. Rome genuinely possessed impressive sanitation technology. Yet cleanliness and health are not always the same thing. A society can appear clean while still harboring dangerous pathogens. The Romans solved many visible problems. The invisible ones remained. That contradiction sits at the heart of the Roman sanitation story. Daily life often masked the scale of the problem. A person suffering from a parasite infection might continue working. A merchant could still sell goods. A soldier could still perform duties. The illness became part of ordinary existence. Symptoms that would concern modern doctors were often accepted as normal aspects of life. Fatigue, digestive discomfort, recurring stomach problems. Many people simply endured them. Over generations, widespread health issues blended into the background of society. Because everyone experienced similar problems, few questioned them. The danger became invisible not only physically, but socially as well. People adapted to conditions that modern observers would find alarming. As another day ends in ancient Rome, thousands of citizens return home believing they have survived just another ordinary day. They visited markets, worked their jobs, attended baths, used public toilets. Everything seemed routine. Yet beneath the surface, countless microscopic battles continue. Parasites settle into new hosts. Infections spread quietly through crowded neighborhoods. Contamination moves through the city's vast human network. The greatest danger of Roman public toilets was never dramatic. It did not roar from the sewers or leap from the shadows. Instead, it traveled silently, unnoticed, and persistent. But even disease was not the final horror. Because the social reality of Roman toilets, the embarrassment, the vulnerability, and the shocking things people witnessed there, reveals an even darker side of everyday life in the empire. And that is where our story ends. By now, the public toilet of ancient Rome may already sound horrifying. The smell was unpleasant. The sanitation was questionable. Disease spread in ways nobody understood. Creatures moved through the darkness below. Yet for many Romans, the greatest discomfort was not physical. It was social. Modern people are accustomed to privacy. We close doors, we lock stalls, we expect personal space during one of the most vulnerable moments of the day. Romans had very different expectations. In many public latrines, privacy simply did not exist. A person could enter the room and immediately find themselves sitting beside complete strangers. For Romans, this was normal. For us, it feels almost unimaginable. Picture a crowded afternoon in the center of Rome. Stone seats line the walls. Every position is occupied. Citizens wait for available spaces. A merchant discusses grain prices. A politician complains about rivals. A soldier tells stories from a distant frontier. The conversations continue as though everyone were gathered at a public square rather than a toilet. There is no separation between social life and bodily functions. No attempt to create distance. No effort to shield individuals from observation. A newcomer from the modern world would likely feel embarrassed within seconds. A Roman citizen, however, might see nothing unusual at all. Cultural expectations shaped every aspect of the experience. Status and rank often followed people into the latrine. Roman society was deeply hierarchical. Wealthy elites enjoyed privileges unavailable to ordinary citizens. Yet public facilities sometimes forced different social classes into close proximity. A laborer might sit beside a businessman. A freed slave might find himself near a local official. The toilet became one of the rare spaces where social boundaries temporarily blurred. That did not mean equality existed. Power remained visible in clothing, speech, and behavior. Still, the simple act of sharing the same stone bench created unusual encounters. Few places in Roman life brought such different people together so directly. Not every interaction was friendly. Arguments frequently erupted in Roman public life, and latrines were no exception. Political disagreements followed citizens everywhere. Business disputes lingered long after transactions ended. Personal grudges could surface at the most inconvenient moments. Imagine trying to relax while a heated debate unfolds only a few feet away. Voices rise. Insults fly. Tempers flare. The cramped environment amplifies every sound. There is nowhere to escape until you finish your business. For some Romans, a simple toilet visit could unexpectedly become a front row seat to an argument that lasted far longer than they wanted. The lack of privacy created opportunities for embarrassment. Clothing could become stained. People could slip on wet floors. Awkward accidents were inevitable in facilities serving hundreds of visitors every day. Ancient writers occasionally joked about such situations, suggesting they were familiar enough to become part of everyday humor. Nobody enjoys public humiliation. Romans were no different. Yet the design of the latrine left little room for dignity when something went wrong. One unfortunate mistake might unfold before an entire audience. The memory could follow someone long after they left the building. Women faced a different set of challenges. Historical evidence suggests that some facilities were separated by gender, while others may have operated differently depending on location and circumstance. The details remain debated by historians. What is clear is that daily sanitation affected everyone. Women, men, children, slaves, and citizens all depended on systems that often prioritized practicality over comfort. The experience varied according to wealth and status. Those with private facilities enjoyed far greater privacy. Those without such resources relied on public infrastructure. Like many aspects of Roman life, comfort often depended on how much money a person possessed. The toilet reflected the broader inequalities of the empire. For the poorest residents, public latrines were not merely an option. They were a necessity. Many apartment buildings lacked private sanitation facilities. Residents lived in crowded conditions where personal space was already limited. A trip to the public toilet formed part of the daily routine. Rich Romans could retreat into luxurious homes. Poor Romans shared public resources with countless others. This contrast appeared throughout Roman society. Magnificent villas stood only a short distance from overcrowded neighborhoods. Engineering achievements benefited everyone, but comfort remained unevenly distributed. Even something as basic as using the toilet revealed the gap between rich and poor. At night, the atmosphere changed dramatically. The crowds thinned. The city grew quieter. Shadows stretched across stone floors. Oil lamps cast flickering light against damp walls. Sounds from beneath the seats became more noticeable. A splash echoed from underground. A rat darted across the floor. Water moved through unseen channels. What felt merely uncomfortable during daylight could feel genuinely unsettling after dark. Many Romans preferred not to wander the city at night if they could avoid it. A late visit to a public latrine only added to the unease. The darkness transformed ordinary surroundings into something far more intimidating. Perhaps the most surprising truth is that Romans rarely viewed these conditions as shocking. They adapted. Children grew up with them. Adults accepted them. Entire generations considered public latrines a normal part of civilized life. This reminds us how deeply human expectations are shaped by culture. What one society sees as ordinary, another finds disturbing. Romans looked at their sanitation systems with pride. In many respects, they deserved that pride. Their engineering achievements were extraordinary for the ancient world. Yet modern viewers see the same facilities through a very different lens. The contrast reveals just how much ideas about hygiene, privacy, and health have changed over the centuries. So what is the horrifying truth about Roman public toilets? It is not a single shocking detail. It is the combination of everything. The crowded stone benches, the overwhelming smells, the shared cleaning sponge, the parasites spreading unnoticed, the rats beneath the floor, the darkness of the sewer tunnels, the complete absence of privacy, the daily exposure to risks that nobody fully understood. Ancient Rome gave the world incredible architecture, engineering, law, and culture. But beneath its marble temples and grand monuments existed another reality, one far less glamorous. Every day, millions of Romans lived alongside filth, disease, discomfort, and vulnerability. The next time you step into a modern bathroom, close the door and enjoy a few moments of privacy, remember this. In ancient Rome, even a simple trip to the toilet could become one of the most unpleasant experiences of your entire day. And for the people of the empire, it was simply called normal.